Hey there, film fans. I'm Jeff.
I'm Dave.
And I'm John, and welcome back to The Love of Cinema, a pod in which we'll challenge one another to discuss movies, both new and old, with a strictly positive critical eye.
That's right. And to avoid lazy negativity, we've decided to make this episode a drinking game.
Ooh, mostly.
So anytime we say anything negative at all about this film, about each other, about how if Dave ever had a child, he wouldn't need a plague to have a calf's head. We're going to hear this sound. That sound means we're taking a drink, and we hope you drink along with us.
So pour yourselves a glass, because we're bringing strumpets and plagues back with us from the 50s if we ever get back.
Hell
Cheers,
yeah.
fellas. Ah,
that wasn't the one I guessed.
That
wasn't the one I guessed you'd do.
What roast did you think I was going to do?
Yeah, read the others. You said you had 3 others. Can I hear the others?
Yeah. Okay. About how Dave's infidelity with the devil has caused many plagues. About how when Dave is by himself, he's always in dull company. Yeah, that's okay. And then about how Dave always has dumb terror in his eyes.
See, I went with whatever way I turn, my rump is always behind me.
That's a God. That's a good line, dude. That's such a good one.
That's really good.
That's the really one good. I thought you'd pull.
Can't escape it.
Turns out it was just yourself.
We are talking about The Seventh Seal, and I love it. We are a drinking podcast, as we said in our intro, and we're talking about the 1957 Ingmar Bergman picture, The Seventh Seal, and we're already having fun laughing, which I think is great, because I know this gets in that whole like plaguey, crusade, dark theme kind of thing. And yet there's a lot of fun silliness. We got jesters, we got drunks, we got jugglers with hot wives. And naked babies. They just didn't have pants for babies back then. I mean, it's so much fun, silly shit in this. So I'm glad. But we'll give you the good shit too. We got a special guest here who's gonna help us out with that too. John, do you want to do the honors of introducing our guest? Is this 3rd or 4th time on the show? Is it more than that?
4th.
Fourth. Yeah. I'm gonna do it organically, because first I'm gonna say we have 2 sponsors. One of which is Carlos Barroso. And this guy makes beer. You can find his handle in the show notes, cbarroso.beer. He is our beer sponsor, even though I haven't tasted his delicious brews in years. Years it's been since I've tasted one of Carlos's beers, and I miss them. Carlos, what's up? I love you, buddy. Thank you for all the good wishes and the texts and everything. He stays in touch. And we also have a music artist in residence known by the artist name Dasein, Dasein. You can find their music available on all the usual music platforms. They have 2 names. They have Dasein, which is the avatar, if you will, the musical god avatar thing that the persona lives in all the usual music platforms. There is also my brother, Brandon Say, the film composer, who is with us again today. They are one and the same. Be ready for a new release that's going to be coming out from a film that all of us worked on, guys, several years ago, Cineas Pacifica. That music album will be hitting the charts, the Spotify, the Apple Music, the Google Music, probably in the next couple weeks.
I look forward to 1,000 copyright strikes.
Wow, what an intro. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, as you said, I have exciting news. I've been working for a while, you could say 9 years, on putting together the original motion picture soundtrack for the first movie that
this took you 80 years to achieve. It's okay. I don't like it anymore.
I don't like it anymore. Unlike that, I do like this. I actually, I finally am putting the finishing touches on the soundtrack for that. I'm going to release it this week. And of note, it was the first movie that the 4 of us collaborated on.
9 years,
still a good one.
What the hell else you been doing?
Oh, nothing.
So long.
Actually, okay, so that brings me to the next plug. I'll just get these plugs out of the way. Go check out my newest album that I just released about a month ago under the name Dasein. It's called Something Past. A little bit of a departure from the type of thing that I normally do. Still a long-form instrumental piece, a bit more piano-focused than the others, less percussive, but hope you enjoy it. That's my shit. Thank you guys for having me on.
Very emotional.
Did you catch the Matt and Mark movie show this week? Because the theme there was Something Past as well. On like their there's a 15-minute story that's hilarious. It's worth listening to at the beginning.
Whoa.
And like even the producer in the booth, you could hear just pissing herself laughing in the background.
Yes, okay, I get it.
The producer in the booth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what
they have a producer in the booth?
John, John, don't out yourself, bro. Just play along so you can actually pretend like you listen to their podcast.
They know.
Come
No.
on.
I don't have to. I don't have to play along, guys. I don't listen to our podcast. I don't fucking listen to.
Yes, I did
I
hear
don't
that
listen.
story. It is epic.
Okay, cool.
Bad
all
Mark,
right,
I love you. I love you. I text. I get so much joy. Brandon, maybe we should include you in this text thread because this
Please,
5-person text
God.
thread is fucking nonstop, hilarious, joy,
Also-
inappropriate, fun movie commentary back and forth. But
Yeah.
it's mostly just shenanigans and inappropriate jokes,
lot of butt
which is
stuff.
all we like to do.
A lot of butt stuff.
Whole
That's
lot-
true.
whole lot of
No
that.
buzz there. That is true.
No doubt.
And where the Instagram group thread and where the text group thread starts and ends, nobody knows. Nobody knows. If you want to reference
Mad
that,
Mark.
it's a 50-50 shot. There you go.
We love you. Do they
They have a
reference
producer
us?
in the booth. That's so funny.
They mention us
Yeah,
all
they
the
Do they
time.
reference us as much as we reference them?
Quite a bit.
Kinda.
Oh God, I love it. Are we the
Okay.
spinach eating assholes
Basically.
over there?
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
use
pretty
it as
much.
shorthand for like an art house cinema. Like this is a love of cinema movie.
And we're
That's
doing.
true.
Did they talk
they're
about?
like those
they were
motherfuckers
doing-
love the Brutalist. They're like those motherfuckers would love it. It's such a fucking
Yes.
love of cinema movie. They fucking love it.
Mark was the first one of us in the thread to say, "I can't wait to see this movie." Last year, he
Hey.
was the first one to drop it. And
Mark-
this week,
What do I get buzz for?
we're
Because
really
50
gonna.
cents gets donated to the fires. So fuck you, Mark, but thank you, Dave.
That's just his altruism. Well, this week we're living up to their highest expectations because I could not think of a more cliche art film to talk about on the love of cinema than the movie
right.
we're going to be discussing today that I will
Great.
not out yet. I'll let you get there and
We
tell us
already
about
outed a great organic segue. So if you're new to the show, thank you so much for listening. Please go back through our thread, find all the times Dasein has been on. He definitely was on for that Bonnie and Clyde episode. The other ones are a blur because we drink. And he's also been on the Matt and Mark movie show way more times than John has, that's for sure.
Way more.
We've
I
been
don't
doing the
Listen to it
random
more. I
year.
just found out.
We've been doing the random year generator. So Dave will spin a program that he whipped up somewhere in his life and his free time, and it'll give us a year, and we give you the context. We set up
Free
the
time.
movie history that was happening. We give you a little bit of world events. I'm going to keep it tight today because 1957 did not have as many movies as 2019, like last week, or 2000. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So anyway, so if you need to get to the Seventh Seal conversation, if you need to get to us talking about that, please check the show notes and scoot ahead. I promise you'll like us talking it with a little bit of sauce in the belly here.
I love how we've just all separately blocked out the Midsummer episode.
I already forgot last week.
Yeah.
I was like, what year? Yeah, that's right. We did Midsommar.
I've already.
last week.
I had a good time, you guys. I don't know.
That's great. We'll
wrong
tell you
with
what
you?
you've been watching at the end of the episode. And we actually have 2 mini reviews. Our guest, Dasein, has a mini review. I don't even know what movie it is. I'm so excited. And John is going to give us a part 2 of one that I talked about last week. So if you see the episode title, you know what they are already. But first, any news or anything before we get to these? And also, again, I'll just say it again. Check the fucking show notes. If you want the Seventh Seal, scoot ahead. We're going to have been a little drunk. And then we're going to talk about some fucking Bergman, which is not our first Bergman on the show because we did Through the Glass Darkly. We love Max von Sydow. He's our shit. Come on. Is Bibi Andersson? Is that you say with a Sean? Sean! say that, right? Come on. We love this shit. I'm
Throwback.
so excited to talk about this. Okay.
Oh
Anything
my
we want to say
God,
before we do
that's
our mini
so
reviews? Anything?
No.
Let's get into it.
Okay. Let's go with Brandon. You want to go first? I'm so excited to hear what you're about to talk about.
Yeah, dude, I can
Yeah.
go first.
Let's do
So
it.
I saw Steven Soderbergh's new movie Presence
Whoa.
last week, and I don't know if y'all saw the trailer, but my memory of the trailer, although I will preface this whole thing by saying, whenever I start to see a trailer for a movie that I actually want to see, I look like a freak. I cover my ears and close my eyes. I don't want to see it. I don't want to be, I don't want to see anything
I'm
about a movie
exactly
that
the
I know
same
I'm
for
gonna
completely
watch.
different reasons. Like horror film.
Because
Oh,
I see.
yeah. I'll do it for any type of movie because I just don't want to be prejudiced by the trailer. But I did see some of it, and it really sold it as sort of like a horror movie.
Mm.
They really lean into the ghosty horror elements of it. And I would say, having seen it, that I would not categorize this as a horror movie at all. And so I was a little bit misled by that. But even if you just take that aside, the movie, it's a very interesting take on a ghost story. And at first when I started watching it, you realize I won't give anything away. You realize I don't want to use the word gimmick, but the thing that the movie is gonna do. And I wasn't sure if it was gonna work. After the first scene, I was like, oh man, is the whole movie gonna be like this? But actually it does. They pull it off, I thought. And
I was wondering
overall, yeah, because
I
know it.
I know what the gimmick is. I won't mention it either. But I was wondering how long they could keep that up for.
Exactly, they keep it up the entire movie, and I thought it was going to become exhausting, and for me, it didn't. The movie really moves. It flew by. I had a good time with it. You know, we could debate later whether we think it sticks the landing or not. I've heard people on both sides of the fence of that, but I enjoyed it. I recommend it. I would go see it in the theater. It's a cool theater experience. So
nice.
Yeah.
All right. Check it out. Presents. Did you like it better or worse than his recent film, Magic Mike's Last Dance?
Can't compare. Didn't see it.
I've still never seen any of the Magic Mike.
I haven't
It's supposed to
seen
be
it
good.
either. Yeah.
I've heard objectively the Magic Mike is good and entertaining and better than you think it would be.
I hear the Vegas show is great too. You should go check that out. And Dave liked Kimmy from 2022, and then there's a bunch of series in there. Look at Steven Soderbergh. Can't stop, won't stop. All right.
He is the MJ of a professional movie makers, right? He's retired like at least once, and like just keeps coming back.
Retired?
I heard somebody say the other day, I was talking, you know, I've made some of these verticals. I've talked to you guys about that. And somebody said the other day, I just thought it was pitch perfect. I was talking with this guy who works at a place who makes trailers for these things. And he was just talking about how like this industry is going to explode once. And he said like Steven Soderbergh is going to make his prestige vertical. It's going to just like, you know, change everything. And like, he's the perfect example of like the guy, him or Sean Baker is going to go, they're going to like get a fucking tilt a camera on the side and go make something like that, and everybody's going to have to talk about two different film mediums moving forward.
It's funny. It's become that popular. The new cameras actually have the guides in the viewfinder for vertical.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy. Which is funny because we still, everyone I've worked with still prefers to shoot like full sensor with a camera tipped on the side, as opposed to shooting with like you're saying you would keep it in a normal.
Yeah, they keep it normal. Horizontal,
put the little parameters on there.
But the guide is the actual vertical strip. But of course, you're shooting on like a 12K plate, so it doesn't matter.
The world is changing.
What were those movies like Missing? And I forget what the first one was, where everything was on a screen.
Searching.
Was it?
Searching.
Yeah, Searching. That's right. Yeah, that's right. And then the whole thing. So I feel like this is an easy evolution of that. If somebody's just recording the whole thing, we do this anyway, right?
Missing was definitely another one that was on a desktop.
Yeah, so I wonder if like the vertical, it could just be like point of views of the different phones, and I feel like it's so heisty. I want a heist movie. That's what I want. No, John's saying no. It's like
have you ever seen?
There's a reason why. There's a reason why
it looks good, but it looks real. This is like the Blair Witch, but done well. Yeah. Come on.
Have you seen Hardcore Henry?
I know.
Have I seen what?
Hardcore Henry.
Yeah, the PNV movie.
The entire thing was filmed on a GoPro Black.
But it was filmed horizontally. Yeah. Nobody films horizontally.
But it's so horizontal, yeah. The argument still stands that when you look at the great paintings and photography,
Seven Seal is good. A lot of good artwork in Seven Seal. Good segue.
Sure. Portraits look fantastic. A single or a two looks like it can look really good, but there's something that lacks the immersive experience that happens in horizontals, as the people in the verticals call them, horizontals. Like there is something different about that experience. Even in this, what is this? It's not quite 4. Is it 4:3, Dave? Is Seven Seal 4:3? Is it, it's that old 35. Yeah. Even that, there's something about that square where it's bigger than a square. It's wider than a square that allows you to feel a little bit more immersive than just a portrait single.
Otherwise it'd be 3:3.
It's good hearing people. We have a YouTube. Dave sets this up for us. It's good seeing you say this with the backdrop of your image, and right below you on my screen is Brandon on his image. He is the chessboard between death and our main character played by Max von Sydow. So you two talking about the immersiveness of horizontal images while I'm watching you two in these frames. I was like, I'm sold. Mm-hmm. I'm sold. That's it. Okay, fuck it. I take back what I said. I don't, so that you can get your comments in. I set you up. That's what it was. Anybody said it to me can go fuck themselves. Yeah.
What are we talking about?
YouTube.
You're up, John. You want to give me a Real Pain part 2? Let's go.
I do. I'll just be very fast. We did watch it, and I think I pretty much agree with everything you said the other night. It was like very much like Anora.
I should have got
sure.
5 seconds in.
Jeff is right. Jeff is right. That's it. Moving on. Very much like Anora. I feel like the only hindrance to small independent films getting this much buzz is that you have an expectation and you don't get to discover these movies in the same way as maybe I'll use Sean Baker as another example. In 2015 or 16 or I can't remember when he made Tangerine, when people in the film world were like, have you seen Tangerine yet? Because it didn't win Palme d'Or, it didn't like make all this money. You had to kind of tell each other like, oh, have you heard about this movie Tangerine? Oh my God, you should go watch it. Or the Puffy Chair, back with the Duplass brothers. And I'm not saying I'm happy these movies have been commercially successful and that they're getting noticed. I want independent films to get noticed. But the only thing is that you might go into them not being able to discover something that independent films have that commercial wider audience appeal films are designed to have that they don't have. The independent films are designed to have the commercial audience films don't have, which is there's going to be something niche and insulated about it. Typically, it's just a lower budget, and so I feel like I want people to go into this expecting a small movie, and I think they're going to be they're going to be totally satisfied. But you see a Jesse Eisenberg and a Kieran Culkin, and you might think this is a real movie, but it feels this big.
Indie, yeah.
But that's why it works within that space. It's so tiny, and it
Right.
really is just scenes where people are talking to each other and a few good emotional outbursts. The only criticism I would have, and it's not even a real criticism, is that Kieran Culkin is so. This might be the best compliment you could ever give somebody. He's almost becoming like a Jack Nicholson in the sense that like he's gonna do Kieran in every single thing you put him in. Yeah. He just is that essence that Jesse Eisenberg keeps talking about. He doesn't really prepare that way. I think Jack did prepare like crazy, but just that real kinetic asshole, super cool thing, which is, I'm not saying it's deflated by the fact that Jesse Eisenberg literally writes a character in himself that talks about that thing. I'm not saying that at all. It's just very much on display. So I think also I would just tell people, don't go in expecting to see Kieran Culkin be someone other than who he was in Succession. He's exactly who Kieran Culkin is, which is why he's so fucking brilliant. He is on fire the entire time. I thought he was great.
90% the same. There's that extra 10% of vulnerability in this, I think, goes a long way. And I think the real question for you is, I agree. I think it's
Did you not watch season 5 of Succession when his dad dies?
I watched all of it, but he's still. Anyway, whatever. I think the question is
a quick review from John, ladies and gentlemen.
I think the question for you, but we don't need a long answer, is why? Okay, you want the indie thing, but most indies don't look quite as good as this, and the performances aren't quite as good as this. So why is it that? And I'm not saying they're not as powerful, but this looks a little shinier, and the performances are just a little bit more what we expect out of a Hollywood movie, while everything else looks like an indie. Because most indies look like that After Sun, where it's almost handheldy feel, where it's almost like this voyeur kind of feel, or like The Lost Daughter, those kinds of things. Why does this one seem like it's on par with the Hollywood movie, but it's actually an indie? Like, why is that?
If I'm being honest, it's because of the faces. You know who they are.
Really? Okay.
2 famous faces, and Jennifer Grey is a famous face. A little brighter, a
little stiller, a little pop. Yeah, Jennifer Grey. Yeah, and then
it was very well done. But I think I know what you're asking, and I think it's the movie stars. I do. It was made very well.
Yeah,
but I think Anora was made. I think Anora was made, just as well. But they're totally unfamiliar faces, and it feels like there's something. They don't feel like they're on the same level of indie. And I haven't looked up the budgets, but I would imagine they're not crazy different. I don't know. I haven't looked them up. I haven't looked them up. Anyway, it's on Hulu, as Jeff said last time. I really think everybody should just put a blanket on, settle in.
93 minutes. Let's go.
I mean,
just enjoy that story. It's a really honest story.
The main difference between an indie film and this is this was shot with an Arri Alexa mini LF. which is very expensive.
So you're saying like, yeah, so you're saying there maybe was a little more money than normal behind a movie of this scope. Could we say that?
Yeah,
Which is why it kind of feels that way. But I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope Jesse Eisenberg continues writing. He's really good. I haven't seen any of his other movies.
I love he said this because his plays kept getting bad reviews, so he said, "Fuck it, I'll write a movie." Okay, cool.
Oh, he's a playwright too? I haven't seen any of his
He wrote a couple
stuff.
plays, yeah. Okay, great. So this is fantastic. Any gripes that we want to get into? Again, just a little bit of drinking just to get to know us. Scoot ahead if you don't want to listen to this. But anybody have any gripes? Dasan, do you have a gripe?
No,
Anything you want to get off
for
your
me.
chest? What? It's been a year. You could have been building something up for a long time since you've been on the show.
None of it would be
Yeah.
funny.
Oh, it doesn't have to be funny. It doesn't have to be funny.
That's okay.
Relatable. Relatable.
I told you, says aren't funny when we complain about stuff. We just sound like assholes.
You're about to move into that Los Angeles traffic. You got a lot of stuff. There
Actually,
you
I
go.
got one about the New York traffic.
All right. Dave's going to hit us up with a 1 minute buzzer free rant on the New York traffic. Let's go.
'Cause I don't have a car. But so they introduced the congestion pricing in Manhattan, $9 if you want to drive onto the island, which is supposed to eliminate the traffic. But what's happened is everyone took it for the first, didn't changed and did the other transport options for the first week. And then went, fuck it, drove the car and ate the $9. So now all the traffic's just as bad, but now everyone's frustrated because it was supposed to be not as bad. So they're doing things like they'll pull right up behind someone and just sit on their horn till that car moves.
Wow.
And I'm walking along
So it's the
beside it.
70s before
right.
the honking
Honestly,
charge
But
came in.
it's not the
It feels
honk,
kind of
honk,
70s
or
in
anything.
New
It's
York,
just
yeah.
one long blast up to 60 seconds. I've clocked them. And if you're sitting on the horn for more than 60 seconds, you are now the asshole.
Yeah.
That's
You know
all
what's-
I
That
want.
is
what's
so
also
New York.
terrible?
Just around the corner in the day. Shut the fuck up! You can just,
There was also
fucking classic.
there was only one free entryway into New York City, one, and it was the 59th Street Bridge, which they renamed, but fuck it, it's the 59th Street Bridge. Everybody knows exactly where it is when I say that. And
It's the
it goes
Gatsby
right
Bridge,
into,
baby.
and it goes right into the congestion pricing, so you have that. But what's worse about this, and you could see this a mile a fucking way, is now it basically goes to 59 60th Street. So 60 is 61, 62, 63. People are just parking there and then trying to either take the train in or walk or something. And so the areas around, which you have to expect, and the GWB traffic, the traffic just gets dispersed. Yeah, they basically want to funnel everybody into the metro, and maybe they will. Maybe it's a little bit of an intake, but it's terrible around that congestion zone.
As someone who uses that thing every day at least twice, I can tell you that worked for 3 days. There was 3 days where it was just carnage on the MTA. It was packed. It was back to cattle cars.
Maybe we'll make that money back someday.
So you guys feel like it's been a few years now. Everyone is back that left during the pandemic. Is the city just as crowded as it was?
Well, they're doing a get back to the office thing, and Google started doing.
Yeah, what the
now
fuck?
Trump. Oh my God,
started doing
corporations?
that. Well, don't worry, there's another flu coming.
It's the corporations, yes, but also it's also Trump. So if you are a government contractor, which guess what, in New York City, there's a lot. There are people that have to observe companies to make sure, they're not IRS, but they're agencies that report to the IRS to make sure that people are complying and such. A lot in New York, similar to DC, right? They're all going to have to be in person 5 days a week. It's part of these new ordinances that are under the people don't know about them because there's so much bigger news that's going on every day. But that's one thing, is that everybody's going back into work 5 days a week if you're a federal employee. It affects all of these agencies that are private, but essentially feed into these other agencies with their work.
Big corporations in Manhattan had started that already. Everybody got the thing. The one that they sent out from one place I work at, that made the news. They had such a visceral response the other way from the staff, and they were not happy about being told to get back to the
it's
office.
a trickle effect. And in some of these companies, they're actually watching their own back because unfair hiring and promoting practices, for instance, if people are at home, they're not as likely to get promoted. This has always been it from the beginning, right? This has been that excuse. But this one is actually one that has stood the test of time. So if you want to be promoted to a managerial position, but you're at home, whether it's maybe you're doing your own childcare, maybe you want to save money on childcare, maybe it's some other reason, health, whatever, but there are somebody in the office every day, first one in, last one out, that idea, you're going to promote that person. And so in a way, the remote work has actually sort of skewed the longevity of the idea of building themselves up the corporate ladder. And so in a way, some of these practices, it's not I'm not saying that's the right reason to do something like this, because there are plenty of reasons to do remote work and it's perfectly fine and capable. But that built-in excuse is now comes you don't even have to think about that anymore, because it's just fuck it, everybody back to work, and that's the policy and that's it.
I still think they're just ashamed of all the overhead of office space they have that they don't want to sell.
That's 100% what some of them
is that.
The dickest move I saw was some of the tech companies were like, yeah, sure, you can keep working from home, but we're now going to adjust your wage for the base wage for the city you're living in.
Well, because people were like, I'll get the San Francisco prices.
You know what?
You know something about San Francisco prices.
Maybe you'll disagree with me, but
nowhere on a
I
farm.
1000% agree with that.
I agree too.
I don't agree with that. I believe you should be.
But it was literally them just trying to force them to come back.
I think you can be paid exactly. Let's say you live San Francisco and you live in city A. Let's say whatever, Concord, North Carolina, where we're from.
What a weird spot. Why did you choose that place?
Sure, shut up. I think you can still be paid the prices out of your San Francisco job, but you should also be taxed in your state according to the salary you're making. So you should pay that amount of tax. You shouldn't get the tax break from living somewhere else and make that amount of money from getting paid. That's the way to fix the tax code and solve this problem. Bring that money.
And to help other states.
Yes, it's going to help the state you're living in, which is what your whole goal is, to live in another community.
It's definitely
I don't mind you making more money. You should just be taxed accordingly.
I'm straight away putting a 25% tariff on Matt and Mark movie show.
Taxes, people. We're talking about taxes.
Matt and Mark.
Oh no, my light went up.
Taxes.
Taxes. Light went up. Taxes. Robin Hood.
What movie?
Robin
What movie is? Thank you, Robin Hood.
Taxes. Yes, oh, good.
Oh, my donation.
Every town.
Okay. Enough. I got a gripe. It's gonna be fast. Let's go.
All right.
Mine's not that funny either, but I don't care. I got to say this. Fuck. Go ahead. Apple and Netflix need to stop being dicks to each other. I know that they're in competition with each other in a way, even though Apple, I don't even know what their business is anymore. They do whatever the fuck they want. They can lose money on TV, make money. I don't know how the money works. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know how to graph what Apple is as far as their like entertainment department goes. But if I'm on Apple TV and I look up a movie or something, it will not tell me that it's on Netflix. It will not. And so of course I use Real Good, REEL good, but it shows me everything else. It even tells me that I can rent it on Apple TV and Amazon. I can rent it from these different places. So at least it's like telling Amazon, like, no, we're letting you know that it could rent from that too. We're not monopolizing that because the App Store's gone through some shit in the past. But why won't they tell me if something's on Netflix? I don't understand.
It's a long history. Dave, what is the word for that when Apple and Microsoft were dueling and they wouldn't play nice with each other in terms of like physical hardware compatibility?
This is monopoly. They're running that risk if they're hiding information. I have the app downloaded, so it should tell me all of the things that I have downloaded. Like it should tell me all the content for the things that I've downloaded.
Shout out to the Real Good app.
Yeah,
which is what we use here.
Which always sucks in January because I feel like it takes a while for them to realize what contracts ended and what contracts shifted. And
I mean,
hey, they're responding to what they know. Sure.
I know. But it's February now.
It would take anyone that long. They're also on vacation. There's no bugs around you, Jeff. The drugs are working.
Do you guys have drugs? So,
can we have drugs?
I'm going to turn my donation counter on and see what that's up to.
I took some allergy medicine with my beer. I don't know if you guys saw that at the beginning. I popped a pill.
No, but I see your eyes now. It's awesome. We should
groovy.
have a mushrooms sponsor on here, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Thus, I know
we should have taken mushrooms. We should have taken mushrms before we watched this movie.
Can you imagine if we did a show last
together?
Jesus.
If the four of us are ever in a room, yes, Dasein. The four of us are ever in a room together, we got to do some mushrooms and press record. I mean, it's just gotta happen. Actually, we'll wait an hour.
It'll sound like Helter Skelter played backwards.
I once made a video for someone that was like leaving, and for fun, we did a director's commentary of it. So we did a director's commentary, then we did another director's commentary where we just insulted him the whole time. And then we did a third one where we decided we watched his video long enough, so we put Star Wars on and did a commentary for that. So we were hammered. Like I drank a bottle of whiskey at this point. So oh my god, it was.
There should be. Oh,
so
Dave, you're
funny.
making such a good point.
Dave, why did you decide to stop drinking this year? I'm so confused.
My health was starting to suffer.
My head is
I can't imagine why.
On the track.
So someone said it was bad for me or some shit. So yeah.
Moving forward, if DVDs ever come back and director commentaries are a thing, I think you guys know I tend to make not explicit comedies. They're usually serious. So we should have two. There should be two directors' commentaries where one is serious and then one is basically a show where we're just roasting roasting everything that we do and touch.
Yeah.
And I want to hear people making fun of it. Because
my God.
when they're on a
Drink whatever
serious
you
movie
want.
shoot, everybody isn't serious on a serious movie shoot. That's
Yeah,
usually not the
Holy
vibe.
shit.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you remember Dakota, Jeff? When we were on that shoot and it got wild that 1 minute?
That 1 minute?
Yeah. It was funny. It was a very serious shoot.
Share. Yeah,
It was a very serious shoot, and someone commented that I'd been very quiet, and I was being respectful. I didn't know everyone involved. And they're like, no, let your hair down. That's fine. Immediate regret on the part of everyone, because then we started coming up with pitching like alternate lines for things. And
I knew Dave, so it was fun for me.
It was really inappropriate.
The director did it. Dave was referred to by somebody the director knew. Hilarious. So fun. That was actually I think we're coming up on the anniversary when we shot that. I feel like we shot that over President's Day weekend, if I remember.
Yeah, maybe.
Anyway.
I was drunk.
Dave, that might be your epitaph. Really inappropriate. Just like, this guy was extremely inappropriate.
I can't wait to do one of your commentaries. And Dawson's going to be there too, of course, because he's going to do the score. All right. But it's going to take him 9 years to take that.
The best commentary I've ever seen, though, if you get your hands on it, is Resident Evil 2. Because
that's a deep cut, David.
It's really deep. Well, it's hilarious because it had Mila and the other guy, and then there's I can't remember her name, but she was playing the female cop character. But they recorded them separately, so Mila and this other guy are sitting in like LA just getting pissed and eating sandwiches and stuff and joking about the film, they were paying the fuck out of the film. And this other woman is giving an in detailed like explanation of how she got into character and what her prep was and that sort of thing. And they kept cutting between the two. It's hilarious.
Oh my God. It's so good.
I think you just gave me a good idea for a new podcast. It's people dissecting really good DVD director's commentary. I feel like there's a show there.
It's so good.
I think it'd be funny.
Brandon, you don't have any buzzes. What's your least favorite movie you've ever seen?
You asked me that, and I think I said...
You didn't even wait for an answer.
I think I said it was the It miniseries from 1990.
Oh, you did?
Oh, come on.
That could be better. That's a bad... We don't like that.
Too.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, okay.
We don't
Give
like
me
that
the show. I'll think about it.
I'm kidding.
Jeff, what is the worst movie? I don't think we've ever asked each other that. What is the worst movie you've ever seen?
I think the second Twilight movie is the worst movie I've ever seen in my life, and I've seen it at least
That
once.
is a good... Yeah, that is the only Twilight movie I've ever seen, so I didn't go back to see anything else.
Taylor Lautner actually seems like a really nice guy, but I mean...
Well, he didn't direct it.
It's just too bad. You're right, but it's too bad. It's too bad. Anyway, you guys want to talk about 1957?
Yeah.
Do it.
Sure.
There's a lot of SHs I just heard. Shh.
That was the ocean behind in the Seventh Seal.
No, it wasn't.
That was his butt.
What?
Sure.
He just landed.
All right.
No.
All right. Fucking guys. Guys, I want to say a quote that I heard Bergman say. They
heard it?
interviewed him. I heard, from his mouth.
He whispered over your shoulder.
Criterion app. I meant to say this at the beginning. Criterion app. It's on another platform. I don't care. Get your Criterion subscription up and watch us on Criterion. Support Criterion. But it has a couple commentaries and it has this thing where it's like Bergman on the Seventh Seal, and it's like 3 minutes. And I was like, okay, he's gonna give 3 minutes about his own movie. But it's basically right before he's about to rewatch it. It's a really good quote. I'm gonna say it in a second though. Here we go. Okay,
you can recognize the app. It says Criterion. We're not the AFI.
Criterion shit.
Sure. David.
I love the Criterion app. Thank you, John, for the password. Are you guys ready to tell me what is the highest grossing film of 1957? We like to start with the box office. What was the highest grossing film of 1957 worldwide? What do you think?
Gunfight at the OK Corral.
I can't buzz it because it's in the top 10. That's like part of my rules. John,
oh my God.
Guess.
Wow.
That's actually number 9, which is so crazy because a movie that we have talked about in our past that came out in 1957 is not in the top 10. But that fucking thing that you just said with that goddamn inflection in your fucking voice is number 9. So fuck. At the
How
OK
about
Corral.
Voodoo Island?
How bad do you want to say? Okay, there you go. How bad do you want to say Gunfight at the Golden Corral? Like how much do you wish that 1957 movie came out? Okay, any other guesses? Dawson, I know.
See, now I just want like soft serve ice cream with a bunch of gummy bears because you said Golden Corral, and I'm skipping the main meal. I'm going straight to the dessert bar.
You're going straight to the diabetes. Okay. Can anybody fucking guess a movie that was on here?
Paths of Glory.
That was a great guess, and it is so wrong. It is not in the top 10. That is right. We talked about Paths of Glory in our first ever episode, where I think all three of us had a different idea of what our structure was. So we just talked for 2.5 hours about movies. But the Paths of Glory episode is really, 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 really great. Our first ever episode. Paths of Glory is not in the top 10. I'm so sorry to say. It did
I like to always guess musicals in the 50s. Is The Pajama Game in the top 10?
Another really good guess. It's not in the top 10, so fuck yourself. But no, I have it in my notes, and there is a musical in the top 10. I'll tell you.
Because Dave. No, wait, let me guess one more. One more.
God, yeah.
12 Angry Men.
Not in the top 10. Okay, cool.
Damn.
So this is the time. What a time to be alive here. Okay, number 1 is John, your boy David Lean, The Bridge on the River Kwai. We almost did that this week.
That many people saw a 4-hour movie?
I'm shocked.
$15 million worldwide. $15 million.
It's the 50s. Like advertising guys had to find something to do with their afternoon.
I'm going to talk about this in a second, but I think one of the themes, especially for my world events, is just like patriotism. We're like 10 years out. Basically, this is like the end of the baby boomers. So we're like heading into the 60s. We're heading into JFK. So
just a little.
Korea's over.
It's a $3 million budget, supposedly. And how much did you say they made? $15
million. And that's box office. Who knows what it made in re-release?
Can you imagine if a $300 million, Marvel movie, I guess that is equivalent, isn't it? If
it doesn't have to be a Marvel movie anymore.
They're giving it to anyone. 5 times what it made. That would be a very successful movie, right?
Yeah. Right, for context, Elvis Presley bought Graceland this year for $102,000.
He also made Jailhouse Rock this year.
Okay, John, you show it off now. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, shut
up. Okay, number 2 is Peyton Place, the 20th Century Fox flick.
What
Sayonara.
What a score to Peyton Place. I recommend it.
$11 million. Sayonara, the Warner Brothers film, came in at 10.5, which, by the way, won a whole lot of Oscars. The Bridge over River Kwai technically won more, but Sayonara won a lot of Oscars. Comes in at number 3 for Warner Brothers. Search for Paradise, Cinerama releasing. Dave, your favorite, comes in at number 4. Old fucking Yeller comes in at number 5.
Don't bring the kids.
Buena Vista Pictures.
Oh, no.
$5.9 million. We need to teach our kids to cry. 1957, they're probably sitting there like, our kids, they're stiffs. We just let them
That was a touchstone for me on the Disney Channel.
They're stiffs. Come on.
Jeff, do you remember getting the Disney Channel and watching Old Yeller when you were? Was that a touchstone for you too? That changed. My life changed a little bit when I watched that movie.
People had the tape.
I was
the VHS. So you'd go on vacation or whatever, and you'd be like, "What tapes do we have?" And Old Yeller was one that everybody had in like their vacation,
it got to us,
houses. Cry on vacation.
I'd already heard so many references to it. I didn't watch it, so.
You guys live in Australia, and you had to kill an animal like every day of your childhood. Like,
was going to kill us.
Brandon, John's setting his buzz record here. You got to keep coming back. Okay. Number 6 is Rain Tree Country by MGM. Now, Rain Tree Country is interesting. Not only was it nominated for a lot of Oscars, but it is the first film shot in the MGM Camera 65 that shot in a 65 millimeter lens.
Wow. Damn.
Interesting. To round out the top 10, 7 through 10 is
65 millimeter film.
What was it? 65 millimeter film?
It was definitely film. Just let him go. Let him go, Dave.
What the fuck do I know? What do you think? You think I know? What the fuck do you think I know?
This is the period of time when all the studios were coming out with their wide, large format versions.
Is that a quiz? Is there no answer? Or you just
VistaVision, Cinerama 65. They're all just like these giant final wild Vista shots. Anyway, keep going.
Fuck everybody. They did this shit where they have a tie for 7, but they still have an 8, which makes no sense. Because the 8th movie would be the 9th movie if you count. It's fucking stupid.
Dave, that is the other thing that upsets him in movie world, is when any kind of category fraud.
There's now
or
11 movies in the top 10. It makes no fucking sense. Come on. If 2 people tie for silver, the 4th place person doesn't get a bronze.
Here he goes.
This person doesn't get a bronze, and 2 people tie for silver because they came in fucking 4th. God.
Your button's back. Feel free to use it.
God, dude, that's so funny. Sorry, I ruined your flow.
Island in the Sun and A Farewell to Arms. I guess they were both 20th Century Fox pictures, so whatever.
Wow, A Farewell to Arms came out this year. Sun Also Rises, another Hemingway picture, came out this year.
No shit.
Son of Psoriasis?
Not on this list. Pal Joey. Psoriasis. This is why it always. This is
Son of Psoriasis.
Look at me.
The sun all, comma, psoriasis. Oh, it's a different story.
Brandon, you're a doctor. What is psoriasis? I hear about this all the time.
It's a skin condition.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so. Okay.
You ever put Parmesan cheese on your pasta?
Guys, I used to I tanned.
Yeah,
I tanned.
That's 50 cents, bitch.
I tanned a couple times. I tanned a couple times when I was in high school because I had back knee, and tanning took care of back knee. And I the one person I knew that I bumped into was like, "Fuck, it's my friend's mom," and she was like, "You're here," and I was like, "Oh, I just have back knee," and she was like, "Well, I have psoriasis," and I was like, "Oh, great." And then I was like, "I really hope that we are now keeping each other's secret."
Home crossed us straight off the
about
MILF
it when
list.
you were in the tanning booth?
I'll think about her when I get a melanoma pretty soon. Okay, here we go. So,
Jeez. All right, we got Doc. Let's get back.
Pal Joey was number 8. Gunfight at the OK Corral, as I said before, was number 9. Thank you, John, for that shout out there. You got that. And then Don't Go Near the Water. The MGM picture comes in at number 10 with $4.265 million. So all these movies are in the profit.
Is that about a beach in Australia?
Oh.
Actually, my dad was on the golf course this week, and there was an alligator in the water, so you had to stay far away from the water.
They can't run fast.
So, wait, this is interesting. By country, the bridge over River Kwai, which again is about British troops that are, I think they're actually in Thailand, right? But it's technically like the Japanese occupation during World War II. Is that right, John? You saw this movie? Yes, Brandon says yes.
Is it Thailand? Is it Thailand?
Is it Thailand? It's Thailand, right?
I don't remember the place.
But all right, I was gonna
I'll look it up right now.
Fine. Anyway, France, West Germany, love the bridge over River Kwai. You know who didn't too much? The Japanese. Their top movie this year was Emperor
Burma.
Miyagi and the Great.
Yeah, it's Burma.
Burma. Is that Indonesia? Where's Burma?
I almost said it. Can 4 American men?
It's Southeast Asia, right?
It's somewhere over there. It's its own country, isn't it?
I'm basing this on the food.
Anyway,
I've had Burmese food.
the Soviet Union.
It's Myanmar. It's Myanmar.
Okay,
Myanmar.
sorry, my mistake. Okay.
But we call it Myanmar now. It used to be called Burma. That is,
I think
kind
it
of like
goes by both.
Is this like a Gulf of America thing?
Yeah.
No, it was formerly called Burma.
Okay.
I just Wikipedia. Yeah.
You know what's funny is Gulf of America is a surprisingly unpopular. It's weird for him to make a weird unpopular decision early on. Okay, anyway.
I love that Google changed it, but just for Americans. Everywhere else on Google, it still shows up as Gulf of Mexico.
Placate us, Google.
Yeah.
Do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, what if they did that for what if they did that for everything? And
I
then
think they
Americans
do.
got even worse when they traveled.
It's gonna get
Can
so
you imagine
confusing.
the entire
I'm Canadian every time I travel from now on. I'm just telling you. Okay. The Soviet Union, The Sisters was their top movie, which is I'm lost.
It's supposed to be great. It's supposed to be great.
Italy loved the 10 Commandments this year, which came out the year before. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay. RKO ceases domestic distributions of feature films, which is taken over by Universal Pictures. End of an era until you do the Rocky Horror Show and they talk about RKO in the first number. Here we go. Ingmar Bergman's The Seventh Seal. Oh my gosh, relevant. Wins the special jury prize at the 1957 Cannes Film Festival. That is right. We are doing the Cannes Film Festival jury prize winner today on our show. A couple other film news things. Jerry Lewis appears in his first film without Dean Martin in The Delicate Delinquent. Little alliteration there in that title. Pretty fun. United Artists rejoins the Motion Picture Association of America following an expansion of the MPAA Code appeals board members. The board had previously denied the man with the golden arm a production code seal in 1955, leading UA to quit the MPAA. So welcome back, United Artists. The last bit of news here is really interesting. In December, so the Seventh Seal won in May, which is when the Cannes Film Festival is. In December, I think they changed the dates of this. Ingmar Bergman's Wild Strawberries is released in Sweden. it is sort of in one of those cusper years because it actually won the Golden Globe in 1959. So it's kind of like a 1958 movie, 88, 9 movie. But it actually came out in Sweden, in the country that it was made in, probably because some distributor was like, Seventh Seal is good. Release this the next year. Come on, this is how we do this. Wild Strawberries wins the 8th Berlin International Film Festival Golden Bear Award for the 1957 film year. So Ingmar Bergman's potentially his 2 best films, depending on who you ask, 2 of his greatest films for sure. He said in that thing I mentioned before, he said he's made at least 50 films if you count his TV movies, 10 of which are good, and The Seventh Seal is one of them. I bet you he thinks Wild Strawberries is another one.
Those are Billy Wilder numbers. Yeah.
Jeez.
A couple other quick things. Bridge over River Kwai won a whole lot of things. It won picture, won director for David Lean. Alec Guinness won best actor, right? And he still ended up in Star Wars, so he probably felt really weird about that. Joanne Woodward would win for The Three Faces of Eve, and she was such a newcomer. She made her own dress, and it was weird at the time because everything was so glamorous that she was literally roasted by presenter Joan Crawford, who said she was setting Hollywood fashion back 20 years during the telecast where she won an Oscar and she made her own dress because she wasn't as wealthy as #1 earner of the year, Rock Hudson, or #2, John Wayne.
Joan Crawford was just jealous that Joanne was fucking Paul Newman that night. That's all. That's right. All she cared about.
She won for The Three Faces of Eve, and Miyoshi Umeki won for Sayonara, as you said before. And a couple other standouts that happened this year. The song "All the Way" won Best Song from the movie Joker is Wild, music by Jimmy Van Heusen and lyrics by Sammy Kahn. It's obviously a Frank Sinatra hit, but it's also a standard. And then, one more movie came out this year, and it actually only came out in Japan in January. Throne of Blood by Kurosawa came out this year. Actually, there's one more bit of news that's really interesting. 1957, Joseph McCarthy died. I'm going to say it again during the next segment. Fuck Joe McCarthy. Nobody cried when you died, you motherfucker, you piece of shit. But blacklisting was still a real thing. Why are you buzzing me for
Joe?
that?
You bitch.
Joe.
No, it's your fucking
Joe.
The spiel says anything negative.
How funny. It's funny, but fuck you, Joe. Listen to this. You ready? As in the previous year, 1956, the blacklisting of certain writers led to anomalies in the writing awards. This is such a good story. This is matters. Just hit that fucking button. Hit the button.
Oh, the past 2 minutes.
I already hit it. You ready? The Academy Award for Best Screenplay in 1957, based on material from another medium, was awarded to Pierre Boulez for the Bridge over River Kwai. Despite the fact that he did not speak English, because the actual writers, Carl Foreman and Michael Wilson, were blacklisted at the time and did not receive screen credit. Foreman and Wilson have since been acknowledged, etc. But they literally nominated somebody who was incapable of writing the screenplay, and he won Best Writing. That is how they literally are sticking their middle finger up to Joe McCarthy. Good thing you fucking died this year, Joe. There you go. Any other movies you want to shout out that came out this year?
Any film fans who are interested in just fun movie trivia, do a little research on the River Kwai, because the development of that script is actually very interesting. It took a very long time. They floated through a lot of writers, which they tend to do, but it's so interesting because of what was happening with the blacklist. There were several writers that they floated through. Years went by, and oh man, it was so interesting, so strange. I just want to point out that at the Cannes Festival that year, where Bergman won for the jury prize, the Palme d'Or winner, the ultimate prize, went to William Wyler's Friendly Persuasion, a movie that I've never seen, which I thought was interesting. I've never seen that one, and I do want to see that one. This is also the year I was going to mention that Throne of Blood was not considered for that year, which is kind of crazy. It came out in January of 57, but was not submitted in time for in Cannes floats at some point in the spring. It's usually, I don't know when it happened that year. This is also the season. It's usually in May, right?
Why did they sit on it for so long? It's not a Dasson album.
Oh, come on. Look at you making jokes. That's good. There we go. That's good. This is also the year of Nights of Cabiria, Fellini, my favorite Fellini. It's just amazing. I got to see Friendly Persuasion because it beat The Seventh Seal. Man Escaped, Robert Bresson. It's a great Bresson. If anybody has never seen it, that's a great intro Bresson movie. And fucking Cabiria, that's fantastic. I mean, I've never seen Funny Face either, another really famous one. Anyway.
Wait, didn't Witness for the Prosecution come out this year?
That's right,
Another
Billy Wilder. Yeah,
that's the one
yeah.
I was going to shout out, and that's what I thought you were going to say.
William Wyler.
Yeah, the William Wyler, Billy Wilder. Yeah, it's very confusing.
You know, the whole
Yes, we got a
thing.
buzz for Brandon. Let's go.
Fair enough.
Yes.
It wasn't even a cheat
I'll
buzz.
also call out.
It's
I'll
just,
also
it's
call
just
out.
the way John talks into his AirPods. It's not your fault, Brandon. Sorry, what was that? What was John?
Sure. An Affair to Remember, fantastic movie. A Face in
love a
the
good affair.
Crowd, fantastic movie.
Elliot
Sweet
Kazan.
Smell of Success, a fantastic fucking movie.
Right.
If anybody loves noir and you love fucking journalism movies, it all was born from this fucking movie. There's a couple silent movies they could reference to, but this is the one that like really started it. It's still fucking captivating. Tony Curtis is so good in it. I recommend watching it tonight. You're gonna enjoy every fucking moment. It's so fucking
Nice.
fun to watch. I'll also call out. You called out Paid in Place. 310 to Yuma, the OG. That is a good movie.
Yeah.
It holds up. And there was one more I didn't want to forget about. I mentioned the Pajama Game. And all right, we can move on. That's fine. Really good.
Jailhouse
year.
Rock came out this year. Is that what you were gonna say?
Sure.
Fucking came
And I
out this
mentioned I
year.
was joking about it, but 12 Angry Men is like it's in the pantheon, right? That's like it's
It just did.
fantastic. It's right. It's so good.
Did we just do it? Is that Lumet? That was Lumet. Oh no, I watched the Lumet movie for Holocaust class. Anyway, so
Yeah, you watched the Pawnbroker.
actually, Brandon and I remembered another episode you were on, which was a Kurosawa episode.
That's right.
You did Hot and Low, Fast and Cold, High and Low.
Hot and low.
Hot and
I can't remember.
I remember I
Did
said
Jeff,
it.
did
Remember I
Jeff
said
lean
that.
into his microphone and distort the
By the
fuck
way,
out of
you
it
guys,
constantly
I
in
don't
that
know-
one too?
Remember I said high.
Possibly.
Remember I said high and dry, and Brandon was like,
I sent you
"Ah,
guys-
Yes, it is the Radiohead song. Yeah.
I sent you guys the longest list of all time of one of the very, very lengthy Criterion articles about the movies that are going to be coming out this year. And I don't know if you noticed, but Spike Lee is making a contemporary version of High and Low.
Guys,
Yes.
Dave talks about it all the time.
let's
Dave
see what
loves
he
it so much.
does.
He's so happy about it. But Brandon, I remember you sitting there and be like, yeah. So during the pandemic, I watched every Kurosawa, and you had your list like ready to go. I was like, holy shit, this is like, I forget where High and Low was on your list. It was pretty high, right?
Akira.
It was in my top 3, I
Your
think.
Kurosawa.
I think it was number
Yeah,
3.
I think so too. Where's Throne of Blood?
Throne of
From
Blood is
1957. Throne of Blood.
it's a rung down. I would probably
Okay.
put it around 5 or 6.
Oh, but that's pretty
That's
high. I
the-
mean,
It's Macbeth, right? That's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good.
sense.
It's amazing, of course.
I like
But
all right. Are you ready for a quick breeze through of the 1957 year at large world events? Quick.
It'd be fucking quick. We're at 50 minutes
Yeah,
already.
you fuck yourself. You shut up. Wait, I gushed myself. I didn't mean to fuck. Shut
Jeff
up,
has
everybody.
fat fingers. He's mashing the buttons again.
Dave.
50 cents, Dave.
All right. Well, 1957 was an important year because at least one of my parents was born in 1957, which is great.
Wow.
Oh my God, Brandon doesn't have the P button. He just disappeared.
Yes.
Oh, there he is. He's back. Oh, he's getting a refill.
He's getting the beer button.
All right. Well, I just blew into my microphone. Sorry. I think apart from one of my parents being born, which is really cool, 1957, is Sputnik launched. Heard of it? But it's funny with the shit with the space race. Everything happened so fast. So Sputnik launched. Another thing that happened this year: Soviets put a dog in space. Laika. Two different things happened in the same year.
That's a
Go
good
Russians.
boy.
They were doing a good job.
That's a good boy,
Didn't they
Mike.
send
That's a
two?
scared boy. He must have been on drugs.
Yeah.
Not first, I don't think. The first electric watch is introduced in 1957. I'm sure it was really light
Need a
on the
fucking
wrist.
long extension cord for that.
Yeah, yeah, I
how
don't
are
know how you
those
charge
two
that.
things happening at the same time?
Really,
I know.
really
yeah.
light on the
Yeah.
wrist.
Yeah, Russia's like, we're in space, and they're like, but we put electricity at your wrist. Elvis Presley's controversial Ed Sullivan Show appearance. This is 2006. So everybody talks about the Beatles and Ed Sullivan. I would say number 2, if not 1B, of like the biggest moments in television history as far as like live performance goes, is probably Elvis Presley on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Yeah.
In 1957, Bruce Springsteen said it inspired him. So I mean, that's something. Man, I'm from New Jersey.
I didn't know
so
you
if
had
disagree, go
opinions
fuck yourself.
on those moments in television history, Jeff. What are some others?
The Brandy Chastain moments really high up there for sure.
Who?
I would say definitely Kennedy. Come on, the the famous telecast. So the glasses come off. Come on. Okay. Anyway, Elvis Presley's controversial Ed Sullivan Show appearances on January 6th. Elvis Presley appears on the Ed Sullivan Show for the third time, but the camera angles carefully avoided showing his full body due to his provocative dance moves. During the performance, he sings the gospel song Peace in the Valley. Ed Sullivan himself praises Presley, describes him as a real decent, fine boy, expresses how pleasant their experience has been.
I'm not making any comment on this whatsoever because last time I mentioned Elvis on this show, motherfuckers come out of the woodwork.
They did.
Come on,
it was David. It was just you and me. We were all alone too.
Yeah, for that Elvis episode. League of Nations has their first meeting. League of Nations had their first meeting, noticeably without U.S. representation. So sorry. The USSR nuclear test begins, but don't worry, we also started testing nukes, but some of it which was underground here in Nevada. The Suez Canal reopens after the Israel and Egypt crisis subsided and Israel troops went back to Israel. Elvis Presley put down the down payment on Graceland. He put down $1,000 cash against a sales price of $102,500. But don't worry, he wouldn't be there for long because he would be drafted this year in 1957 and inspire the musical Bye Bye Birdie. Senator Joe McCarthy died and nobody cried. I'll say that again. The New York baseball giants moved to San Francisco and the Brooklyn Dodgers moved to Los Angeles, respectively. So East Coast teams also joined the gold rush, maybe a few years late. Lennon meets McCartney for the first time. The first ever encounter between John Lennon and Paul McCartney happened in 1957. American Bandstand goes national. Shout out. Little Rock 9 happens this year. On the Road gets a rave review from the New York Times. Also this year, though, Howl, the Ginsberg poem, not so good. Not so good of a review. And it essentially got banned by censorship. By censorship. Althea Gibson, who we recently talked about in, I think, a 1955 episode as being the first African-American tennis player to be in major events. She won Wimbledon and the U.S. Open. Won both in the first year. It's the first African-American woman to do that either. And last but not least, the body of Ed Gein's final victim is found.
Jesus.
1957.
Found it here and here and here and here.
There were other bombings and Cold War shit going on, but that's the gist. Are you guys ready to see how all of this relates to 1957, where we head to Sweden and we talk about the Crusades? Come on, it's the end of the baby boomers.
Well,
baby
welcome
boomers technically
to
go to
everyone
1960, but yeah, welcome back, everybody.
Yeah.
Did you put that timestamp in correctly?
Yeah, I did.
All right, so this is Ingmar Bergman.
That is our longest intro of all time for sure.
It really is.
We'll let it out. We had fun though. Fuck you, Joe McCarthy.
I told Angela today, I was like, we're going to cut it down. We've been talking, we're going to cut it down. And then today I was like,
yeah,
fuck
we did none of it.
We got Brandon here, so we got to stretch. Okay. Where am I? We're talking about the Seventh Seal. That's right. There you go. I got it. Ingmar Bergman. They're essentially using
Just forget the movie.
Shut up. We're essentially using tech that Hollywood... Fucking hell. We're recording late today, too. I'm about to pee through the middle of the night. Pee this out.
Welcome to old man life.
They're essentially using cameras that Hollywood stopped using and still looked great. A lot of it was done on a single set, most of it. Playing chess with the devil. Are you guys ready to talk about the Seventh Seal, which is a reference to the final book of Revelations? Come on. Something about the Seventh Seal of a lion and, I don't know,
it was a
sheep.
That quote that was said twice in the movie.
And I started rewatching with some commentary too, so I heard it 3 times.
Oh, nice, dude.
Fuck everybody. I'm going to give you the IMDb description, and then we're going to head off. Oh, it's on Max and Criterion. But watch it on Criterion. Criterion, actually, I don't know about Max, because fuck them, but Criterion restored this film in 2018 from its original 35mm print. And I love that Janusz Films logo. You got to love it. Okay, are you ready? I have a real pain queued up right here, so let's go ahead and get back to the Seventh Seal. And I'm going to read you the IMDb description right here. Are you ready? A night. The original play is based on, I guess, a play, or maybe he wrote the play first before the film, is called Tremalning. A knight returning to Sweden after the Crusades seeks answers about life, death, and the existence of God as he plays chess against the Grim Reaper during the Black Plague. What'd you think? What'd you feel? But first, has any of us besides John and Brandon, seen this before? Dave, have you seen this before?
Nope, first watch for me.
John and Brandon, I'm assuming you've seen this before.
Several times.
Okay, all right, several times. Who should we start with? Who's going to go first?
Let's do Dave.
We gotta
Dave!
start with the
First time.
first timer. Yeah.
Well,
That's a slow laugh. Take your time.
no, I really want to, like, to be honest, I didn't start to enjoy this until about halfway through.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first half didn't resonate with me, but once we got to, like, the witch and
There's a
what happens
witch?
there.
Mhm.
Oh, right. I know what you're talking about.
Yep. Then it started to kick in for me. Yeah, there was no real reason. It just didn't grab me until then.
Mm-hmm.
Although I do feel like, was there some homework I missed? Because, like, I feel like it needed to read, like, 3 poems and view a couple of sculptures to get what's going on with all the references. Because there is a lot of reference to, like, other
Did you
art.
say
and
review a
literature.
couple sculptures?
Yeah.
What were they referencing? What are they referencing?
Well, there's reference to the Bible. There's, like, the Dance Macabre turns up in it. Like, there's so, like, what was the other one? There's another one that they reference as well. But yeah, it was just like a lot of the lore in it. I feel like it was just, you were expected to know it already. I think that's why it didn't resonate with me a bit. It's not a bad thing. Like, anyone who makes a film has already accomplished something, so I'll still, like, I'll give them props for that. But also, like, yeah, like I'm saying, it's not a bad film. It just didn't resonate with me at first.
Well, after it started resonating with you, like, what's your ultimate takeaway? Did you like it, or when it was done?
I think I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
Because, like, I appreciate it for the references. Also, I now finally know what that reference in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey was all about, because it directly references this movie. But there's a whole gag in it based on, like, what happens in this film, and I never realized ever until seeing this. But I feel like, yeah, I think I did. I definitely enjoyed the second half, but the first half of it felt a bit meandering.
I feel you, Dave. Feel you. I'll go next. I'm not piggybacking off of you at all. I still bow down before the shrine of Bergman. I think all the rules that he breaks in that first half, and especially, Jeff, I'm glad you referenced that he wrote the play first. I think it's really important, and I don't know if we mentioned this specifically when we talked about Through a Glass Darkly, but he did have a theater company that he worked for. In that theater company, I believe, I might be wrong about this, but I believe that the man who stars in Wild Strawberries, I know that, I'm not unsure about this, I know that man was a very successful playwright, thespian in Sweden, and also a very famous silent filmmaker in Sweden. And then he eventually starred in Ingmar Bergman's Wild Strawberries. I'm pretty sure that Bergman worked at his theater company, which eventually became his theater company. And so he would often prototype his films on stage first. He would often write them as plays. When you read his screenplays, like the actual printed screenplays that you can buy, like Drama Bookshop in New York, they're written like plays. They're not even written in fucking screenplay format. They're written in theater format.
Do you think that's why they used the camera the way they did?
I'm going to get to that in a second, dude. I want to ask you, because this is not shot by our boy Sven, that you and I love so much, that shot Through a Glass Darkly, that shot the Polanski film, The Tenet, that we love so much, that shot all the Tarkovskys, that that guy, I'm obsessed with that guy. This was a different cinematographer who shot some
Gunnar
of Bergman's earlier work. Yes.
Shot Wild Strawberries.
And I think that might be it. So I'm still going to bow down before the amazingness that is Bergman. Every rule he breaks by bringing theater tactics into film, putting it on this lovely island that he has. For the most part, I appreciate every aspect of it. That said, this is the Bergman film that is maybe most famous. And I feel this way about Seven Samurai too, for Kurosawa. I'm not saying it's not objectively true. I am just waiting for the day that John Say emotionally connects to those two films the way that I emotionally connect to a lot of their other films. I know this movie's fucking brilliant, and I know we can dissect it, and there's so much good that I want to talk about, and the writing is, of course, fucking next level. but I have never felt an emotional and almost that kind of strange place that Bergman can really get himself into so well, almost like a Dostoevsky way of having people talk to each other that you're not quite sure how their brains work. And anyway, I feel like this film is a little intellectual relative to his other ones, that even though he uses high speech in every film, the others feel more emotional. There's a transcendence in the way, I don't know if you guys remember Through a Glass Darkly, but there's something emotional happening throughout, and he really brings you along with it. Whereas this one literally sets you up from the beginning for how intellectual is that concept? A crusading knight plays a game of chess with death to try to save himself before dying, before being claimed by the consequences of his time. Whether that's the crusade or the plague, whatever it is, it's kind of unclear what the movie says he's being killed for. Anyway, so that's my takeaway. Is this still a very important movie to watch? You're fucking right, it's important to watch. There are still so many aspects of the filmmaking that taught people, oh, you're allowed to do that. Like one of those kinds of moments. And there are like 10 people that did that in every generation, and he's one of them. So this is still very important to watch.
I have something similar written that we'll come back to that I want to ask.
Okay.
Based on your intellectual observation.
All right, we'll finish with Brandon, because I think, John, I hate when you do this, but I agree with you, and I'm mad at you about it. I'm mad at you.
Fuck you,
I
John.
hate you. Fuck everybody. I didn't know what to say about it, because I was like, of course, it's great. It's obviously great. I actually started the rewatch with the commentary, and it's not a Bergman's commentary. It's another critic who's amazing. And he essentially said this is the reason he wanted to become a film critic, was this movie, because he didn't understand the references and he wanted to go back and rewatch it. And he was rewatching it over and over again, etc. And I did the same thing. I'm rewatching it, and I enjoyed it more on the rewatch I didn't even rewatch the whole thing, but I'm watching it with the commentary, and I'm like, I love this. I want to watch the whole thing just listening to this commentary and stuff. But while I was watching it, and I think, you know what it is for me, and it's brilliant, and we should talk about it, and everybody should see it. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Wild Strawberry, you were right. And the fact that that guy was born in 1879 and was in Wild Strawberries in 1957. He had wives that died before like 1912. You know what I mean? It's like, and then 40 years later, like, it's just like the what he brings to that, and he's a theater actor, brilliant. Anyway, I love Max von Sydow. He hardly feels like the lead of the movie unless he's on screen. Whenever he's on screen, Antonius Block is so obviously this knight. He barely feels like a knight for half the movie to me, and that's just me. Maybe it's my, what I bring to this. But rewatching it, I realized I actually, is it Yof, the juggler
Jans?
guy?
The juggler's Yof. Jans is the squire.
I love you. Well, Jans is a really fun squire. He's almost Shakespearean, right? And
he's my favorite character. You like Yof?
He's amazing. I'm just saying.
He has one scene that's really fucking problematic, but yeah.
Well, I didn't get back to the scene. I didn't get back to the scene with the Squire Jans with the painter. That was probably my favorite scene in the movie, but I need to rewatch it a couple times before I can really evaluate it. But I'm watching Yof, and I start to get it with the backdrop of the plague, and I see his optimism, and them, whereas the knight just, he feels like he knows he's gonna die, and the people around him are gonna die in the plague. He avoided death long enough, and now he's tired and he's ready to succumb to it. And I get that, and it's fine, but he barely feels like the lead to me. I think that's one thing too. Like Bergman has said, this is about him being afraid of death. He wanted to confront it head on. He was, by the way, 38 when he made this movie, so think about that, guys. But
oh my God.
He was like, he made it because he was afraid of death, and
he is the bard.
Block is such a fucking monster on screen, but then when he's not the central point, when he's not playing chess with the devil, or he's not giving one of those great dramatic monologues he gives, all of a sudden the movie sprawls out, and I lose that kind of focus. So maybe it's part of the brilliance, but as far as the emotional connection, John, I'm with you. Brandon, what do you think?
Actually, I think you just connected some threads there that I've been trying to think about as I watched this movie yesterday. And I hate to say it, I agree with everything all of y'all have already said. This is not one of the Bergmans that I love. I've seen it. This is my third time seeing it. First time I was like 17. I rewatched it in my 20s. And so it's been like 10 years since I've seen it. And I was hoping I would feel differently about it this time through. But I still, every time I watch it, I have this feeling that it doesn't ever really coalesce to create a greater feeling at the end of it. I think that's what you're saying, John. It doesn't transcend, it doesn't have like an emotional catharsis or a landing point, even though there are emotional moments in it. To me, it feels disjointed. And I think that speaks to what you were just saying, Jeff, where like there will be times where you get engrossed in Max von Sydow's epic, conversations with himself or with death. But then suddenly you're pulled out of it and you're looking at like a fucking juggler and a naked baby, or it gets really cartoonish, especially in the first half, Dave, what you were saying. Like the moment when he sees the Virgin Mary, it felt like a Disney movie or something. Little choral music kind of comes in, and then she appears. Or like when whoever climbs the tree and he realizes he's gonna die and he looks down, death is sawing the tree with a fucking saw. It feels like cartoonish.
That was comical.
Yeah, and I'm
climb
pulled
down
in
from
too
the
many
tree.
directions.
Yeah,
I'm pulled in too many directions for me to know like how what this movie is supposed to be doing tonally. And there are moments that I really like where I think the tone kind of finds its place at the heart of what it's really about, and then it moves away from it. So I agree with everything y'all are. Sorry,
the guy screaming and dying, asking for help when they refuse to help him, and he's just like screaming his head off. He's got the plague, and then he just and dies. I'm like, the fuck kind of plague is that guy got?
right.
Yeah. It just feels a little over the top, a little bit presentational, a little bit.
It was me.
Yeah, it has I don't want to use the word false, but there's something about it that does not ring true to me. It doesn't resonate with me, except in isolated moments.
How does it feel that the guy who played Death was 36 when he filmed this movie?
Jesus Christ. It's a different time.
They did it different back then, dude. That guy totally fought in World War II, though. Like, right? Like when he
would have been 20 when it started.
Yeah, when
so
he was 20,
so.
that guy murdered people and was almost murdered. Yeah, like without a doubt.
Wait, that being said, my last thing I'll say though about it is I think the reason this movie endures is because of its imagery. I mean, look at the images behind John and I.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what has carried it through time, is it has such powerful imagery, which usually his movies do, but it comes along with something like John was talking about before that has an emotional or an uneasy kind of thing that allows it to become more compelling that I don't know that I felt with this one. So that's my feelings about it.
Which is why you can never negate the fact that filmmaking is multiple things. And Bergman, who is clearly like one of the greatest dramatic writers of all time, understands how to dramatize his writing in imagery. And some of the movies are more emotional than others, and I think he only gets better, honestly, as he goes along. He also chose a place. I mean, there are essays written on the light in the Nordic lands and like how it lends itself to, I mean, do you guys remember that scene where they were like at dusk and he was like, I'm going to remember this moment.
Yeah.
Him with his lyre and him eating the grapes and drinking the milk at dusk. And it was like the sun was still out, but it was fucking gorgeous. Like just point a camera anywhere on that island. Okay. I just want to tackle really quickly in the defense of Ingmar Bergman. And it doesn't mean it was successful, but I think it was intentional. This movie, as well as I would put The Virgin Spring, I would put a couple of his others in there, are fables. They are supposed to be unrealistic. And I think that he was almost like testing the limits of the medium, because on stage, you can get away with fucking anything if it works. Like it doesn't need to be realistic. But as Kubrick said, who always like heralded, he's basically echoing Kafka, the best way to create something that is more or stranger than reality is to be as real as humanly possible. To be a fucking, to absolutely bow down before realism and try to stay in as absolutely real as possible, and then create a tone within that reality that will be stranger or more than what you're talking about. This does read to me and watch to me. You said like a Disney movie. I think Disney movies are fables. So there is something about that if you were to tell yourself before you watch this movie, this is not supposed to be realistic, unlike Through a Glass Darkly, which is like fucking grounded, right? Like there are moments where it goes away from that reality, where they're doing the stage performance, and of course all the very strange psychological breakdowns that she has, and the way they capture it is so surreal. But it's absolutely supposed to be a real weekend with that family. This is something else. I don't even know when this was supposed to be, or what the scenario was. So I guess the only way to really analyze this is themes. And I'm just going to bring those back as we keep talking about the themes that I think do get executed really well in this movie, that kind of gave birth to how he starts tackling his issues with death and religion for the rest of his career.
Cool. I want to ask my question before you do that.
Right,
is there such a thing as making your film so clever you alienate your audience?
Do you think this is
clever? For sure, dude.
Yeah. There's so many references to so many artworks and literature in the imagery. If you haven't experienced all of that, then you don't get what he's going for to some extent.
I think you have to rewatch. So this critic that I listened to is on Criterion, so you can find him. He talks about how the people in Sweden didn't feel like this felt like a natural conversation. Now, it's set in the Crusades, so maybe it's like if we listen to Shakespeare done the way Shakespeare did it in 1601, it's different than it is today. Everything's conversational and modern today. You can barely understand a fucking word they say.
They don't know what fuck's going on.
Hey, shout out to last week. But I mean, as far as clever is concerned, I feel like he was inspired by that painter. I feel like this actually comes from, right? Did you guys have come across that, right? That the painter in the film who made that mural, that's actually like what inspired this. He was thinking about life and death, and his idea where he was making these paints that seemed very religious, but he was a very realist about everything. And it's funny that Max von Sydow's character immediately goes into this sort of existential confession with death himself. He doesn't know it's death. He gets tricked right away afterwards. But your boy John, the squire, has this funny, hilarious conversation with the guy. I wonder if clever, yes, but maybe he was just too justified. Maybe it was we love the quote, like, truth is stranger than fiction. Like, of course, truth is stranger than fiction. Fiction has to make sense. That's Mark Twain. Like, if you're going to write fiction, it has to make sense. But truth, it doesn't have to make sense. It just happened. I feel like this is one of those things where he was like trying to ground the truth so much. Maybe, I don't know. But I do know that everybody loves the chess scene. That's the most famous part about it. Now, is it just the visual, as you're saying, or is it the idea of playing chess with God, which in a way kind of sounds cheesy. That doesn't sound that fascinating. And why does sorry, not God, the devil, whatever, death. Why is it that he lets him leave? He goes, "Oh, you want to play chess? Okay, you can take her. Go ahead, go around the countryside. I'll find you." Like, the whole thing is so interesting. But that seems to be the takeaway for a lot of people, certainly in Sweden for 60 years. Why do you think people are obsessed with the chess match?
I mean, from Death's perspective, you rock up to someone, they're like, "Oh no, I'm gonna die," and this guy's like, "You want to play a game of chess?" Yeah.
This movie's very different from Death's perspective, for sure.
Yeah.
What is it? What do you think it is? Because that is the pinch for a lot of people is, yes, the artwork and the history and the etymology of where the stuff came from, but also the chess match with death.
I think there are, Dave, to what you're saying, I think it's inevitably, there is truth to the argument that this is one of those very smart movies that have been passed down from generation to generation of critics and teachers that have said you should watch this. Now, I still think one of the reasons that it holds up each generation is because those conversations about death, which is, again, it's not the first movie he dealt with that. He always is dealing with that in some way, but it's one of the most literal ways that he discusses it, that he can literally have a two-person conversation between a person in conflict of their religion, faith, and all the things that come with approaching end of life and death. I feel like he proved to the world with this one that he had the ability to handle those themes head on and not necessarily have to just show them. And I feel like there's some of the best scenes in this movie, because I think what Bergman does best in this movie is deal with those themes in a pluralist fashion. It's not a pluralist in the sense that he has completely other philosophies that have nothing to do with this topic, but in the sense that he is in conflict with himself in this movie, and each group of characters displays a different point of view. and they're all smart enough to discuss their point of view on it, so that by the end of it, you can actually make a decision for yourself on whether or not you thought the heavy-headed knight that couldn't stop lamenting his conflict, the smart Alex Squire, who almost had a sense of humor about it because he thought that he found the absurdity in the whole thing, and then you have the which I think this is very meta, the dramatists, the actors, the performers, who were almost blissfully ignorant of all of these conversations and had a philosophy that almost like went against thinking about this stuff. And they're the only ones who live. So there's a little bit of me that, like, when you look at the canon of his work, and I'm sorry to do that because now we're just talking about one movie. But when you look at one of these there's some Wild Strawberries, like 2 movies that came out this year that deal with death like head on. You kind of see him starting to introduce this conflict that he is in for the rest of his career. And I do think that this movie, as intellectual as it is, will almost literally spell out for you the things he's going to be dramatizing moving forward. I think he does it in more interesting ways as characters begin to show it, not say it, as literally as they move forward. Yeah. But there are still some scenes that, like, I wouldn't have the courage to write that scene where he was confessing.
To back that up,
that's a hard scene to write.
There's this one scene that really struck me, which was like the witch scene, which is what actually got me into the film. But that's the first time they have the potential to affect the world around them again. But they're so, I guess, I don't know whether they're in a state of trauma, they're locked. So he's basically waiting for death. Essentially, he's not affecting the world around him, he's just passing through it, and he's just waiting for death. And then death turns up, and the first thing he tries to do is put it off.
Exactly, dude. I think there's something you're right. There's like they are actively so upset, and this period is too, right? So obsessed with the afterlife and whether or not it exists that they are ineffectual in life other than creating more death.
Yeah.
Jans literally says that line, I thought about killing all the soldiers, but what's the point?
Yeah, and that's the one time they had to potentially affect something in this movie. But otherwise, they were just passing through the events happening to them. They were just waiting for death.
And it's interesting, they were 10 years in the Crusades, and they are back, and they affected a lot in 10 years. And now what? And
Dave, I don't want to pass over, like, you're hitting the nail on the fucking head of, and Bergman's a genius, so I'm sure he knew this. I'm sure he was just experimenting. When they get to the witch, that's the first time that, to use that word, to dramatize an emotional circumstance or an emotional scenario within a theme. Like, that's the first and only time in the movie that it really happens. I might argue that Yoffen and his wife have their own version of this, but they're so not about death that it doesn't feel like it's the same thing. Whereas the witch is a circumstance that they get to observe, and therefore there are surrogates. We get to kind of go into that situation being like, now we have something invested in what they're going to do or not do about this person that they could help or not help. And in doing so, they're going to tell us about how they actually feel about this madness that is happening in their world right now. This belief in the devil and dying for it and killing for it in the name of God and the name of Satan. And they choose to do nothing. They choose to do nothing, and then they choose to talk about doing nothing.
Yeah.
They literally, that's one of my favorite conversations where they're like, what do you think she's feeling up there? When do you think she's feeling fear? Do you
like they're sitting there? They're sitting there and they're like, "Oh, I wish we had some company. Hey, let's tag along with this witch burning party." Like,
I know the fact that they all move together into the forest. When Jans goes and helps them, mate?
I'm going to burn a witch. Oh, that sounds cool. Let's go do that.
Sounds like a
Well, they outperformed him though. You had a good piece of theater performance, and then all of a sudden, this church came out. With that fucking ugly ass skull, that ugly ass crucifix that we saw earlier on, and it was like, well, they're doing a better show. That's a good show. Everybody's we got to watch this show.
Think yourself lucky to just knock on doors these days.
I mean,
I feel like that bring out the dead
front yard.
Yeah.
This is.
Honey, close the blinds.
This is, I think, for me, the essence of this movie. And I'm trying to find that quote because I think it's It's remarkable. I feel like this movie oscillates between those two things I was talking about, like the seriousness of dissecting the philosophy of a man in conflict of his faith that just came back from the Crusades, and then society and how they actually are dealing with all of this bullshit that is happening around this time. But I don't want to like downplay what people were going through at that time. They thought this shit was real. It was like there was nothing else to talk about. It was like religion or not, religion or be damned and be dead.
Yeah,
so that
definitely points the finger at zealotry, because they're like, whenever something bad happens, they immediately look for something to blame, and
so easy to blame the devil.
Yeah,
and blame a woman who's been in bed.
It's
with
like
the
they had a
devil.
wonderful bumper sticker in the '80s that just said "shit happens." Like that. That's all they need to get through this.
It's exactly right.
Reagan.
Yeah. So we have the two moments that I would point are like the apexes of these expressions are when he's having his confession scene, and I think this is the most famous, maybe the most famous quote from the movie in terms of the death stuff, is when before the death returns and reveals himself. It's like right at the end of this, the climax of his monologue, and Antonius Block says, he says something like, "I understand now, when the day when we will look and realize our fear." And Death says, "Ah, that day." And Antonius Block says, "We make an idol of our fear, and that idol we will call God." And it's like it's their arrival. God. And this happens at the end of the first act or at the beginning of the second act. The painting scene has already happened. So we know what we're going to be talking about already. And he gets to that line.
We know religion has already been questioned by that scene, which is great.
We make an idol of our fear and we will call that idol God. Like fucking brilliant. But my other favorite scene is when they're in the fucking tavern. I think you guys know where I'm going with this. And we have the way they cover that scene, by the way, is amazing. All the close-ups are so fantastic. I want to talk about the filmmaking with you.
It's a rare use of close-ups, too.
How about that? And when the fucking religious people come in during the theater performance, all those close-ups, amazing, remarkable. The world just came to life with all their point of views. Anyway, we're in the tavern. And those four random people who you've never met before are like, "Oh, this about the religion and this about the Crusades. And I heard the calf's head was born by a woman."
All for the glory of God.
And then in the same fucking scene, these people start picking and joining in on the destruction of Yoff. That guy starts attacking him, the performer, and everybody is fucking foaming at the mouth with how much joy that they're sinning. They're actively fucking sinning. They're terrible. They're getting off on the destruction of this human being, the humiliation of this human being, when like 5 minutes before, they were all talking about how they can overcome the plague and in the name of God. And I feel like that scene is like Bergman just doing all the work for you. That could have been the short film of him saying, this is what people are saying, and this is what they're actually fucking doing. When worst comes to worst, we're fucking bloodthirsty pigs that just want to watch somebody get beat up. And I feel like that scene hits me every time, but that one really hit me hard. And the way they film Yoff getting up onto that table, those dancing feet from behind with the fucking torches on the table.
He's the bear.
Like,
he's the bear,
are you kidding me? The imagery of that, the dancing feet, the black and white stripes, there's a thespian aspect to it. There's fire underneath. We're in hellfire with these fucking.
I was actually waiting for him to catch fire. I was like, how are they going to do this?
Yeah, I thought he was gonna burn. I thought he was gonna be like a witch or something.
Unreal.
To finish my thought about Antonius Block, I completely agree with you, John. And that scene, and he was there the whole time, Block. Max von Sydow. But going into the tavern too, you have those great scenes where the guys are talking and all for the glory of God, whatever. But that happens. It's amazing. But then Block, so you're right, they're questioning all the religious stuff. And then Block later has two different things, which I feel like is, I don't know if it's like a point. Maybe Bergman's like presenting a point as maybe an idea, which later Antonius Block says, "I'm not afraid of death. I'm not afraid to die, because when I meet death, I feel like I want to know what God is, and he's the only one who can know, because if he doesn't know, then nobody knows." And then he finally gives up. Spoiler, loses the chess match. He gives up in the chess match, essentially. He's like, "Yeah, you gave me checkmate, whatever." And he was like, "So you actually don't know anything?" He goes, "No, I don't know. I know." I think he just says, "I know nothing." So basically, like, it's kind of like there probably is no God kind of moment, but also like you don't have the answer. Even if there is a God, even death doesn't have the answer about that. But because Antonius Block isn't the lead of this fucking movie, even though he is, even though that tavern scene is it, you're right, that is the short film, but it doesn't involve the lead of our movie. So those scenes, those lines are great, but they're great if you pull them out of the movie and think about them yourself. But in the moment when those scenes happened, I went, that's really interesting. That's a really good point. And it didn't stab me in the heart. And God damn it, I wish I did. I wish it was building
Jeff,
up.
It's almost like the opposite of Grapes of Wrath, where the entire book is set in realism and the fable is the turtle chapter. It's like, right? It's like the opposite of that.
Yeah, we just talked about the turtle chapter. Yeah, it's great.
Cinematography. Let's go.
Brandon, what do you think?
Yeah.
We're just shouting at each other in old time sake here. What do you think?
Well, you're making a lot of good points. And like I was saying before, I think this movie really shines when it shines. But it's sort of the gaps in between. Maybe it's because of what you're saying, Jeff. Maybe that's kind of the thing that I'm missing to like pull it all together. Because there are brilliant moments, and there's brilliant moments of writing, but then some other times it's a little. See if you know what I'm saying by this. It's a little on the nose. Sometimes with its metaphor, it's very literal, and I think that's different from a lot of the way he approaches things in his other movies. Except, I think it's a good point you pointed out, John, about the Virgin Spring being another fable. I think those just personally don't resonate as much with me because they are sort of like lyrical. They're like they're very on the nose. They're very literal, as opposed to like making you do the work to pull. Like the scenes that you just laid out are a bit more like his other movies, where it's in the way it's shot. It's in the way what's in the frame. What's in the lines just before this thing happens in the scene. It's in the way the whole comes together. And I don't know, you're making a lot of good points. You're swaying me on it quite a bit, but I still think it's yeah.
Wait, let him finish his thought, brother.
Yeah. Go.
No, I'm curious. What is it?
To Dave's point, the average person shouldn't have to have this kind of conversation to find joy in a movie. So did he make it Finnegan's Wake with this a little bit of like, this is for the thinkers?
Why not?
This is for the thinkers.
I was literally going to compare it to Ulysses because of what Dave said. Like, is there a thing that there's too many references?
Also set in an island.
Right. Like to where it's not, it doesn't really, it doesn't land.
It doesn't
land in the same way. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot in all of his movies, though. I've just been trying to figure out why this one doesn't work as much for me as a whole. Again, there are moments where I'm very moved. I love this. I wrote that line down, we carve an idol out of fear and call it God. That's the best. That was when the movie landed for me. The moments with the witch, like you're talking about, Dave, all that shit really works for me.
I didn't even think about her as the witch. I love that you keep calling her the witch. I'm like, who the fuck are you talking about? Oh, you're talking about the very young Yeah, but I still. Anyway,
she's a witch.
Got better.
Yeah, but I think it's just also, the literal aspect of it.
That first shot with the cart, like if that wasn't like a prop in that cart, they were taking her to hospital because she got snapped around when that thing hit the water.
I know. Did you see that shit?
It was a mix of blood mixed with the bile of a black dog. What is that smell?
The devil can't stand it. And Jan said, yeah, neither can I. Yes, everything you're saying, Brandon. I might wrap it up. Like I'm still marinating on a couple things you guys said, but Jeff, Dave, let's move to.
It moves you, but also it's gonna make you think. And
let's not be.
The best part of the movie is probably gonna be afterwards, where you think back on it. I don't know, maybe.
Let's not be reductive or simpletons about like. We are dealing with this guy did not make movies. I don't know, but you know what I'm saying. This guy does ask you to think about what the stories he's telling. It's not the same way that like Ari Aster last week asks you to be really upset and sad and like have those. Bergman asks you to think a little bit more than the average person.
I do appreciate that. I appreciate that. He didn't face fuck you. Yes, Dave, thank you. But also, he didn't ask you to be emotional. And I do think that is a trap that that's something we could learn.
Now, when we get to the right year, and we do...
I want you to be sad here. I'm glad he didn't do that.
When we get to the right year, I'm going to push you guys to do Cries and Whispers so we can see his Midsommar and watch him...
Was that 70?
Push us into really intense emotions. But let's go, Dave. Let's go to, because I did want to ask you. I mentioned it earlier on. This is Gunnar. This is a different cinematographer than Sven. What did you think? What did you feel about the way they shot the movie, the actual filmmaking? And remember, almost every Bergman movie you've ever seen is on the same location. It's all on his island.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with a very limited space.
I will say the geography got a little problematic sometimes because like we went from beach to forest to same beach. And it was very recognizable.
Right?
But they got lost in the forest and just did a U-turn.
I love when they call it the forest, by the way. Whenever any location is called the forest, I get excited when they don't even have a name.
The cinematography, when we're talking about like how they were shooting it, whereas they're shooting it almost theater style, like, but it wasn't because they used the camera movement to add to the frame. So like the camera would pull out and you'd have like someone doing dialogue and the camera would pull out and you realize there's 5 people sitting around them who are all now contributing to that scene. And they did this to great effect the whole way through. That was very compelling to the eye, and I really enjoyed it. To the point I was disappointed when they started using cards, because I found it very fun to follow. Like it's like this person's talking, then this person steps into the frame, the camera follows them, then it comes back to this guy for the end of the scene, and like I found that kind of action very enticing to the eye, and I really dug what they were doing. To the point where when they started just cutting stuff, I was like, oh.
Though I will ask you, because in the dialogue-driven moments of the scenes that I think you're referring to, of course I agree with you, and I'm always going to be more a big fan of composition changing within a single camera movement as opposed to cuts. But this time around, which is probably my 3rd or 4th watch, I was really blown away by those ensemble scenes, those crowd scenes.
Yeah.
Specifically that one when they're performing at the town, and then there's
so much going on in that fucking
whipping,
frame.
Yeah, the whipping group comes in and they're singing, and
like you could watch that 3 times.
That kind of blew me
and
the
find
fuck away, dude.
Yeah.
Like, how long do you think it took them to film that? Probably not that long.
Yeah, it was one take.
And it would have taken like 4 weeks to shoot that in a studio. If we had shot that with a studio in America, like today, Hollywood standards, they probably shot that in like a week or so. But the precision of creating what was still theatrical to set the scene up, staying by their rules, but then they abandoned it when the troupe came in and it became about perspectives of townspeople. That was shaking. That was terrifying to me when he started cutting to all those close-ups.
Yeah,
I was like, oh my god!
To put it in like words, he only ever drifted the camera. He never spun it. Like the camera would drift up, or the camera would like a slow pan, but never more than like 30 degrees anyway.
We could put on a whole intellectual hat for asking about that rule, couldn't we? Like,
yeah.
Does anybody actually change their opinion on this in this movie?
I like it more. And did you know that Ingmar Bergman's dad was a clergyman?
I did know that. Have you ever seen Fanny and Alexander?
No, but a lot of the artwork in this was inspired by the church that his dad was a clergyman at. But also, it's obviously inspired by a famous painting of a Swedish painting of a knight playing chess with death.
Cinematography wise,
filmed in 35 days for $150,000.
Unbelievable. 35 days. These older movies, of course, tend to live in that theatrical space, like that proscenium kind of approach, like you're talking about, Dave. But it just never fails to
I've never seen it been used quite so effectively, though.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like when you do it well, and they're outside for a lot of this. That's something else that a lot of people, when you're not, I know nobody thinks technically about this unless you're a filmmaker, but to be outside shooting in natural light and to stage people so that you can still focus accordingly on them when they're supposed to be focused on is not easy when you don't have the control of light. When you don't, when you can't actually manipulate the way light is telling you where to look. So it's all in your staging and choreography relative to the sun and probably a bunch of fucking diffused sheets that were up and around the behind the camera. That was amazing to me. There was something else in that whole sequence in the forest this time. I was thinking a little bit more technically about once they got in there and how they shot it. That also, it got very cutty relative to like the beginning part of the film for the first half or so, when it wasn't nearly as cutty, and it was more about shifting or panning and revealing something that was already in the room. And again, that did start making me think conceptually about, he starts breaking, I feel like I wonder if he starts breaking that rule, because you're now dealing with all these different perspectives. And the point isn't to watch people live in the same world. You're watching people from different worlds, different philosophies, experiencing the same moment. And so to start moving like this and like this started to feel more, I don't know, it was harsher.
It's kind of amazing to think about it when you think we went from like that, where they've moved the perspective of the camera just slightly to expand the frame, to fast forward like, what, 70 years or so, and you got that giant wonder in House on Haunted Hill and things like that, and the, Daredevil doing the giant one with the fight scene up and down the stairs and stuff like that. Same principle, they've just expanded the frame so much. But
dude, you talked about in Through a Glass Darkly, those remarkable dolly shots.
Yeah.
Those very long takes coming from the beach to the house. And I mean,
that was the one that reminded me of Vietnamese film.
You did reference it. I don't even remember what film you're talking about.
That was The Scent of Green Papaya.
Scent of Green Papaya. Beautiful. Guys, I want to throw something out there and tell me if you think this is, this is all, it's too easy to dismiss it that way. Was he already dead on the beach at the very beginning? I asked that question very specifically because, one, they're both lying there on the beach, right? They're literally like lying exhausted on the beach.
I know, but if my tights were that revealing, I'd lay face down on the beach too.
Sure. First of all, again, like every angle in that island is fucking captivating. Those fucking
You'd
black
be equally
stones,
as warm
those
to your
beautiful
wife when you
stones.
returned after 10 years too, I bet.
Warm to your wife. Okay, go with me. The first handful of shots in this movie are of and around the sea. And the sea has all, of course, amazing amounts of allegory and metaphor associated with it, life and death, river Styx, blah, blah, blah. And then...
And I didn't know horses could drink salt fucking water.
Sure.
You also apparently don't have to tie them up. It's really interesting.
You don't have to tie them up in Sweden. Not in a fable. Okay. It's a very simple question. I'm just going to ask it. It cuts to him, and he's awake now, and it cuts to death, and the ocean, the sound of the ocean is removed entirely. It's total silence, and you only hear their voices. And that's the first time he meets death, is when they're talking to each other.
So
and this is the third or fourth time I was watching, and it did make me wonder, like, is this him telling you that this is not realistic? Of course it's not real. I know, you know what I mean? Like, it's even more of a fable than you think it is after you watch it maybe one time. Like, he told you in the fucking beginning. It's almost like, because it's an old movie, we don't take it that seriously, that choice. But if we had done that today, people would have been like, oh, this isn't real. We pulled the entire sound of 3 feet away from them. That giant ocean that we built, they build literally a language approaching the sea in the first handful of shots. And then they pull back to him in death, who are right beside the fucking ocean that is really loud. Total silence.
That's some good
ADR
idea.
this
think
entire
about it.
movie. Did they ADR this entire movie, by the way?
I mean,
yeah, but
you'd have to.
because the opening is kind of like what they do in Monty Python, right? Where they look at the sky and it has the classical music that's kind of dark, and then all of a sudden that hawk appears out of. He's all of a sudden center frame. So
It's
the
death.
whole thing is. It's purgatory. I feel like the whole thing probably is, but whatever.
I think so too. And I guess next time I might want to go into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, if you follow it through, what does that mean? What is the point of that? Like, if the whole point of the movie, as I kind of took it, at least from Max's conversations with Death, was with Death asks him at the end, what did you do with your time that you bought yourself while we played this game? Was it worth it? And he says, yes, right at the very end. Does that kind of undercut what you're saying? Like, or is that wrapped into?
Yeah, a little bit.
I think that undercuts it. And I think even more than that, unlike Jack at the end of Lost, when you realize it's his entire purgatory experience, this movie does it it ends with the point of view of other characters. So it's even more confusing. It ends with Yoff and what is her name? Bibi Anderson's name. I feel bad. I can't remember.
He said he has kids. He said he has kids though. So not that Yoff, that he represents the kids or anything, but it actually kind of checks out because he's basically like, that's the idea of the future to him. It's like this people moving on, good people that love each other and they move on, and that's what the future should be. I don't know. You could easily talk your way into that.
It's just so interesting. I'm not disagreeing with you, but the image behind me, I'm so fascinated. I've always been like, this is such a famous image. And every time I watch it, I'm like, I'm hoping to get more and more out of the arrival. The point where we realize, yes, it is finished, as the young woman says, the housekeeper for Jans, when death approaches them in the castle. From that moment to the end of this movie, like he's trying, he's wrapping up this whole little story, which isn't a big story. It's small and it's pretty simple to understand. But then to have Yoff walk outside and have another vision, and to see them, to observe our lead character,
it's a bunch
as you're
of set
saying,
people that they got at the end of the day one day, but it's not even the
Sure.
actors.
Sure.
That was the
Of
rap
course
party.
it isn't. Of course it
Rap
isn't.
Party, yeah, they're like, fuck,
But to
we need
have
a
that-
final image. We'll
but to
some
have
guy
that
playing saxophone
observational
in the front.
shot.
Look at that guy playing saxophone in the front.
He plays a mean whatever lute.
Careless Whisper is being played right now on that.
To have that, it's just interesting to me that he ends in an observational place when he starts from what I think is indicating this is purgatory for this one man's experience. And yet it ends observationally from supporting characters who don't give a shit about this subject matter. They don't fucking care. They're just trying to make it to the next town. They really don't give a shit.
They got a joke.
That is very fascinating to me. That is interesting.
That's a good point, dude. Yeah.
Anyway, that's it, you guys.
I love it. That's really great. We got to keep this episode under 2 hours or no one's going to listen to us. So we have to probably wrap this up here. But thank you all for a very inspired conversation. Any meat we left on the bones, go fuck yourselves. Rip us on YouTube.
Wait,
John doesn't listen anyway, so
I do have one more. Fuck you. This is my last thing, and this is the punctuation for the I don't give a shit. The line that made me laugh out loud the most this time was when Plog and Scott, the other thespian, and the Smith are fighting with each other, and Jans walks up behind them and talks to Yoff, and he makes that comment about how hold on a second, what are you laughing at? This is serious, Jans. And Jan says, in the southern lands, there was a man-like animal called an ape. And Yoff says, what of it? And Jan says, oh, nothing. It's just like, this is man. Like what you're watching these guys do to each other.
We're the same.
Like, it's so funny. We think these high thoughts, but at the end of the day, this is us. Like
I also love when the guy's like, you get mad at me. They're imitating women. He's like, you get mad at me when you don't notice that I have a new dress when I come home. And I'm like, bro, this is like the 1200s. If somebody came home with a dress, let alone new clothes, you'd be sitting there being, where the fuck did you get that? They're wearing
Bob Dylan was wrong.
They got from an animal they killed 15 years ago. You get a new dress, and it's like, who killed an animal and didn't tell me about it?
The times are not a changing, you guys.
All right.
That's so good. How about when she seduces him by eating an entire chicken?
Oh, it's awesome.
It's so yeah. It's great. Kunagunda.
That would have worked on the Hound in Game of Thrones, but I don't know about me.
I was just thinking Hound. Hey. All right.
Seventh Seal. Oh my God. I'm sorry. I talked so much, but so much
that's
to say.
good, dude. You made me want to rewatch. I might rewatch it tomorrow with all.
It only took me 4 times to be able to
watch it with the commentary. That guy's pretty decent.
I do want to do that now that you. Yeah, I didn't. I watched it on Max, and I think I fucked up. Should have gone for a Criterion.
This is one film critic. All right. Before we get to what you've been watching and give you our teaser for what we're doing next week, Dave's going to spin the wheel. Dave, you ready to spin the wheel?
Yeah.
Nice.
Hopefully this button works. You want to take a guess
That's
of
what
where
she
we're
said.
going?
2009.
1990.
Ooh.
1963.
All right.
Okay.
Nope.
Oh, 2000s.
20.
Samsonite. 0. 5. 2005.
Is that Crash, Brokeback Mountain? Is that year?
I think it is.
Yes, it is. We're not just going to sit here and Google movies, people. We are going to get into what you've been watching, where we tell you what we've been watching, give you our recommendations for the week. This is now February 3rd. Oh, we're after midnight. Fuck.
Yeah.
We got to get into this. Okay, Dave, we'd like to start with you. Brandon, get your recommendations ready, but we're going to start with Dave. Dave, what do you got?
Well, this week one of my guilty pleasure films I finally showed my wife because she hadn't seen it. The Now You See Me series with the Four Horsemen.
Oh yeah, you like
magicians.
those, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And they're making the third one, I found out. But yeah, we watched the first one. She really enjoyed it, and I always enjoy watching it because fucking magic, man, it's fun.
Right.
And I found a new series. Has anybody seen Paradise?
No.
Paradise. Okay, it's a guy whose job it is to guard the president, basically. And an incident happens in the first episode. But I will challenge you to figure out what happens at the end of that episode because I did not see it coming in a million fucking years.
Nice.
So
Nice,
I'm
surprised.
hooked, man. It's
Nice.
Yeah. And it's a really slow burn. Like they take
Brand
their
new on
time with it
Hulu.
and like roll you through getting to know the characters and getting to know all the players and stuff, and while the
Nice.
investigation's taking place. And yeah, then they just hit you with what they hit you with at the end of the first episode, and you're like, holy fuck.
Sterling
yeah.
K. Brown, James Marsden, Julian Nicholson.
I really
Love
enjoyed
Brand
it.
new 2025 series. Hulu.
Nice.
Just came out.
All right. John?
John, okay, still watching The Americans, watched The Real Pain, still watching The Pit, which I didn't mention last week, but still watching it, staying up to date with it. I'm liking it. Still watching some ER after The Pit is finished, and I haven't had enough medical drama. Rewatched, in the name of David Lynch's passing, rewatched Mulholland Drive, which I haven't watched in
Jesus.
a perfect amount of time. Like 5 or 6 years had gone by since I had rewatched that in its entirety, and it was really powerful and insane. And I'm gonna go to bat. I watched. And it's not really a mini review because it came out like last year. That movie that nobody saw or talked about, but that Kate Winslet was still nominated for, Lee, the other female war photographer film other than Civil War from last year.
Yeah.
And it's set in World War II. Okay. It's directed by Ellen Kuras, who is a cinematographer, Dave. You might know her. She shot Eternal Sunshine.
Okay.
She shot good cinematography, like has a good fat career in that. I think this is her directorial debut. It's on Hulu. I know you don't like World War II films anymore, Jeff. You're anti that subject. You wish they weren't made anymore.
So many World War II movies. There's so many.
But I can't get enough, and I fucking love that subject matter. The movie is, I'm going to be honest with you.
World War II movie. You gotta love it.
All right. Based on a real character. This woman existed. So that's always fun to actually watch the truth. Like she took all the photos you're going to see her take in the movie, which are pretty cool. It is predictable in a sense that it's totally independently made in Britain by a bunch of women, which is awesome. So it didn't really come out here at the same time. It was technically released in 2023. Anyway, I'm just trying to say that there's a little predictability with it in the terms of its commerciality, but I found it unsentimental, which is very British. Right? They're good at that.
Oh, yeah.
So even though there are those elements that you're like, I think I know this scene is coming up, it doesn't have the sentiment that would ruin that if Americans made this kind of movie today. I think so anyway. And at the center of it is the fucking maybe one of the greatest actors who's ever lived. She's so good in this movie. It's insane. And I just miss the days when she was the lead of like every movie. I know some people might not miss that, but God damn it, she's so fucking good. And I really enjoyed watching this the other night. We had a really good time. I've never seen a World War II movie just because of her personal timeline and experience, because it stays with her the whole time. I've never seen it touch the timeline of the World War II that this movie touches. You're familiar with all of it, but I've never seen it approach it from a structural standpoint. We're starting before, we're here, we're there, we resolve. So I suggest if you like World War II, if you like Kate Winslet, don't overthink it. I think you should watch it and just settle in. And remember, this woman actually lived. This woman fucking did this.
This came about when the DP of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which Kate Winslet was in, Ellen Kuras, who was born in New Jersey, saw something about this real life person and thought, Kate Winslet looks like her. And that's how this movie started, 2004. That was the inception of this.
Kate Winslet is perfection. She is perfection, dude.
I love Severance. Saw a couple other things, but I rewatched Inglourious Bastards as part of this class that we were talking about, and it's just fucking great. It's just so.
Did you like it?
I love it.
Do you have a great rewatch?
The one line that didn't land for me as much as it has in the past is, I think this just might be my
masterpiece. Yeah,
I was like, that didn't land as much for me today. And I forgot that Christoph Waltz's character is smaller, because I feel like the first couple of times I watched this, he looms over this so big that I'm like, is he even a supporting character? Brad Pitt really stood in the forefront for me this rewatch. And
what was your favorite scene in this rewatch?
I love I mean, the bar scene was the one that got me, and then the opening scene, obviously. But in this rewatch, again, Brad Pitt really at the forefront. So I think the way he talks to the guy, he's like, I forget what the fuck's the bear Jew's name, and he's like, we got a German here who wants to die for his country. It's like the scene where he's like talking to the guy, and he's trying to get him to get the position of all the Germans, and he won't do it. That scene that Brad Pitt has with him, I think that's probably my favorite one. This scene.
Excellent.
This rewatch. All right, Brandon, let's bring us home. What do you got? Any recommendations?
I have watched a lot in the last week or two, so I've pared it down, and I'm just going to give you the ones I most enjoyed. I rewatched